Welcome back to another episode of the TradeMarke. We are super excited. We have Jerry Rollins here, a world-renowned expert of sales coaching, is what I like to say, and super excited. So to get us started, Jerry is a natural storyteller, and I want him to tell me a dad joke. So let's get started with one of those.
Okay, you ready? Dad joke of the day, Friday, dad joke of the day. Jesus is walking down a path and he meets a bunch of little kids. And one little kid says, "Hey, mister, who are you?" And Jesus says, "Well, I'm Jesus. I'm the way, the truth, and the light." And one kid says, "No way." And Jesus says, "Yahweh."
Step into the TradeMarke, your go-to podcast for everything marketing in the trades. Hosted by award-winning industry marketing experts Sarah Ghirardo from Remarkable and Eric Thomas from Rival Digital. Together, we're here to unite the worlds of trades and marketing, bringing you insights, stories, and strategies from the heart of the industry. Whether you're a trade professional, a marketing expert, or somewhere in between, this is the place for you. Listen in as we're here for the big ideas, the game changers, and the everyday successes. Because at the TradeMarke, we're with the trades and for the trades.
Was that the end of the joke?
That's the end of the joke, Yahweh. That's all I got.
Perfect. I'm glad I stopped it right there. I was like, oh, that's perfect. I'm just going to do that.
Yeah, it's like you planned it.
So Jerry, you and I have been working on some really cool projects at Service Titan, but and I really want to talk about that, but I want people to know your background. I want them to know how close you are to the home service industry. And so tell me just a little bit about you.
Sure. So, hey, I'm from South Carolina. So let's start there. That's where the accent comes from. And it goes everywhere I go. Hey, I went to school to be a chiropractor. That's what I thought I wanted to do with my life. And after about 4.5 years of college, I called my parents one day and said, "Hey, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go into the restaurant business." And so I went into the restaurant business and I did that for 10 years. And so I managed a bunch of different restaurants. I worked for Longhorn Steakhouse for a long time, opened up 14 different locations. I've interviewed and hired thousands of people. It's absolutely crazy. I had a quarter life crisis when I was about 32, and wasn't a half life. It was a quarter life crisis. And I told my girlfriend, "Hey, I'm going to get out of the restaurant industry and I'm going to get into sales." I read an article that said, "Hey, baby boomers, for the next 25 years, a baby boomer is going to retire every 7 seconds, and they're not going to sell their house. They're going to nest. They're actually going to fix the house that they've already paid for." And if you get into the home improvement, home services industry, you can boom along with the baby boomers. And I'm like, that's perfect for me. So I got into sales. I sold windows, siding, roofing, doors, and gutters. And either as a sales manager, sales trainer, salesperson. After about 6 years of that, I got into the air conditioning business. I spent about 6 years in sales there, sales manager, sales trainer. At some point, I got out of sales and got into training. And so this is my 13th year training, and that's all I do. I've trained in 27 states now. I train roofers, garage door people, air conditioners, electricians, plumbers, everybody in the home services. So starts with the CSRs. I do some CSR training. I do a ton of technician training. I did a 3-day technician class this week in South Carolina. Last week I was in Maine and trained 16 salespeople for 4 days. And so I train CSRs and I train technicians so that we can get more sales. And so I'm really a sales trainer. My technician training doesn't come off as salesy. It comes off as customer service. The CSR training is not sales driven. It's customer service driven. And, but it's also, we can get more sales. Like that's just be honest about that. And so luckily I've worked with some really, really good people that poured into me and trained me and gave me advice and told me no sometimes and told me yes a few times and really just poured their heart into me. And at this point I'm trying to give back. I'm trying to do some nice things for the industry. I love the industry, and there's nothing better than doing a class and somebody sends you a text message 2 weeks later and says, man, I did exactly what you said in that class, and it worked exactly like you said it was going to work, and I got an $8,000 sale today. Wahoo, it was my first one ever. Man, that's a great feeling. It's a great feeling. Like a couple of years ago, I was in a grocery store. I was in a Publix near my house. And a guy walked up and said, hey, are you Jerry Rollins? And I said, yes. He said, hey, you don't remember me. He said, but you hired me. You got me into the air conditioning business. I said, what's your name? He said, Jasper. I said, Jasper McCormick. He goes, yeah, man. In 2013, you hired me and I went through your tech builder school at Morris Jenkins. And I only worked there for like a year. And then I went and started my own business. And I'm still in business today. And it's because of you, Jerry Rollins. And I went home and made the best dinner that night because it was just full of love, you know. Yeah, so that's why I do what I do. I get to work for some really good companies. You know, 3 years ago, I started my own business, the BGDG group. Mm-hmm. That's Be Good, Do Good group. And so I started off training a big company in Chicago. My second customer was Ghirardo. Right. Unbelievable, you know. So I trained a lot of training at Morris Jenkins, and then I start my own business, and my first really big customer is a really big customer. Mm-hmm. And so and so I've spent the last 3 years working with CSRs services out of King of Prussia, Philadelphia, New York, Chicago market. They have about 150 salespeople, and I trained every one of them last year. Super excited about that. They're on a path that I think no home services industry's ever done. So it's super fun to work with them. They have some super talented people that I learn from all the time.
And so when you're out there on the road teaching, you're obviously in a classroom environment, but you're also doing like ride-alongs and really getting hands-on experience with the technicians and the team and the salespeople. Like, what does that look like from a training aspect if you go out there for a week? Like what does it look like for you?
Yeah. So I'll just tell you, next week I'm going to be in the Boston market with CSRs Services, and they got about
isn't that a restaurant? Boston market.
The Boston market. Yeah, Bostonians. And I love that group up there. And so they have about 6 locations in that area. And so I'm going to fly up Monday. As soon as I get there, I'm going to get in a car with a sales rep, a comfort advisor, and do ride-alongs all day. Tuesday, I'm going to do a sales meeting, and then I'm going to get in a car and ride around with a comfort advisor all day. Wednesday, we're doing a 6-hour class for all their salespeople that haven't been to my class. Thursday, I'm going to another location. They're splitting me on Thursday. I'm going to do one location in the morning, one location in the afternoon, but all ride-alongs. I'm super close to the problem. I've been to some crazy number, like 10,000 homes, 10,000 kitchen tables. It's probably more than that, but we know that to be a fact. And so the best way to really, judge talent is to see them in action. And that's that's what I like about Sales Pro is, if you can't physically get in a car and ride around with one of your guys, you can use Sales Pro and do a virtual ride along, and you can scale that. So you can't ride with 16 salespeople. Like you got to pick somebody, and sometimes that's a bias. This guy's not doing good, or this girl's doing real good. Don't ride with her, ride with him. And sometimes we need to spread that.
Right. And I think the technology in those applications of listening to calls and being on a ride along with you virtually with Sales Pro, that is to remove the bias, right? Like you can't be with everyone every single moment of every single day, but this allows you to see a different view. And
it really does. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm interested about how trainers will train on that, right? Because it's new. So this is something new for us to train on. We're like, hey, now we have technology, and it's not that we're going to step away from the human connection. It's that we're going to have both,
It's
until
it's no different than learning something new as a salesperson or as a technician. It's just another bullet in your holster, So using technology is just another way to help that homeowner. It's not a way to like do something to them. We're on the customer side. It's not us and the company against that customer. It's you and the customer against the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And the best way we can help that customer is to solve their problem so they can get back to their life of going to softball practice and going to their whatever it is they would do with their family. This is what we do. Nobody like brings their family over and says, everybody come out into my garage and look at my new water heater. Like they don't do that. They've got a problem and they want that problem to go away. And if we can solve it, and we can solve it at a high level and quickly, they love us. They tell their friends about us, and that's how you grow your business.
Yeah. I think that would be a fun marketing campaign, though, of like, like they send you family photos and be like, this is my new water heater. Like, right, when you get something installed.
That's awesome. I heard about a guy on a podcast one time. He was a chimney sweep.
Mm-hmm.
He was a chimney sweep, and he wanted his customers to sign up for a maintenance program. And instead of just calling them when their chimney caught on fire, he was like, hey, if you let me come out every couple of years, I'll clean it proactively and it'll keep you from having an emergency. And they just couldn't get any traction. So he came up with this great idea. And what he would do is if he came to your house or my house and you got a cute little dog running around, he'd say, hey, can I take a picture of your dog, Sarah? And he'd take a picture of your dog. By the way, what's your dog's name? He'd get your dog's name. And then he had an app where he could take that and download that picture into a magnet. And he would mail you the magnet with the picture of your dog and your dog's name on the magnet. At the bottom, it would say, hey, sign up for your chimney maintenance. And it just blew up his business.
It's the little things that are remarkable, right? I mean, like,
if he sent you a magnet that said chimney cleaning, you probably wouldn't have put it on your fridge. But if he sends you a picture of your dog, you're going to put it on your fridge.
You're going to put it on your fridge.
He's got you. Like, who's the person we need to call? They're not calling anybody else. It's an absolute phenomenal idea. And so, I knew you would love that one.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for that piece. And everyone needs to go and figure out how to generate magnets ASAP.
Yeah, with people's cats on them. Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
Dude, I think you could do that at Walmart. I think you could do it through Canva. I think you could do it through any application. So, yeah, get on that. But I mean, it brings out a good point, right? Because sales people go into people's homes, which is their most intimate environments, right? And I don't think sometimes we, think about that as marketers. As marketer, I'm like, oh yeah, go in the home, like do what you need to do, create the customer experience. But like, how hard or what do you train on your salespeople when they're going into the home? I know Eddie McFarland, he likes to say, well, would you send your mom? Would you have that technician, go to your mom's house? And if the answer is no, then no, right? But like, how do you make someone presentable enough to go into someone's home?
Well, I think first of all, you give them a process. Like that's what they need. They need a process. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, whatever that process is, they need a process that they can follow. Consistency is the key to the whole thing. Like if we can really do it the right way, and the marketing matches the idea of like the message you're sending in marketing is a message. When the CSR answers the phone, they back up that same message. It's the same story, so there's no disconnect for the customer. And then the CSR says, "Hey, we're going to send one of our techs out there. You're going to love them. They got to come in a fully stocked truck. They're going to put shoe covers on. They're going to ask you a few questions. You're going to answer a few questions. They'll put together some options. If you like one of those options, they can do it while they're there. One of those options might be just to get rid of it and get you a new one, right? And so the technician goes out there and he follows that process. We run a play, It's just like a sports team. We run the play. And so he parks in front of the house and he knocks on the door and he does the Jerry wave and he says, hey, am I parked okay? Is it okay if I come in? Let me put my shoe covers on. I got some notes from the office. Can we sit down for a minute and talk? In your own words, tell me what's going on. And then he says, hey, I'm going to go look at it. I'm going to put together some options. If you want to do it, I got a fully stocked truck. I can do it while I'm here. He comes back and says, hey, here are your options. I can fix it. I can fix it, make it a little better. We can just get rid of that thing. And the customer says, yeah, let's just get rid of it. And the tech says, well, we're going to send one of our comfort advisors, one of our project managers out here. Maybe we're going to send one of our plumbers out here. And he's going to come in. He's going to sit down with you and ask you a few questions. And then he's going to put together some options. And then he's going to show you those options. If you want to do it, he'll go ahead and get that thing put in right away. Does that sound okay? The customer says, yeah, let's get the project manager out here. The project manager comes out there and says, hey, how you doing? Am I parked okay? Is it okay if I come in? Let me put my shoe covers on. I got some notes from the office. But in your own words, kind of tell me what's going on. Can we sit down for a minute? Great. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna look at your equipment. I'm gonna do a load calculation. I need to ask you a few questions. I'm sure you got some questions for me, and then I'll give you some options. If you want to go with one, we'll pick one out today, and we'll have that thing put in the morning. Does that sound okay? And the customer will send in a 5-star review that says, we don't know where you get all your people, but they're all the same. They're not nearly the same. They're not even remotely the same. They just all run the play. Mm-hmm. If you run the play like that, it makes it super easy for the customer to follow along and super easy to make a choice. And, and then we put it in. And then when their friends and family call them and says, hey, I got a problem with my water heater. I got a problem with my electrical. I got a problem with my air conditioner. Who did you use? They say, call that company. They made it super easy for us to do business with them. It was frictionless. I called them one morning. They answered, sent a tech. He sent a project manager. The next day, they put a new one in. It was seamless. I went right back to work. I only had to take a half a day PTO. That's how you grow a business. It's consistent. Yep. It's run into play. And if you can get them to do that, part of it's hiring. Part of it's knowing how to interview. Part of it's really a good onboarding. Part of it's really good technical training. Part of it's really good customer service training. And a lot of it is just holding people accountable. You got to hold people accountable in the nicest way.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I think you just gave well more than $100 million worth of gold in that entire process, because we come from large companies, right? Mm-hmm. We've seen the process. We know, like when you say run the play, I'm like, oh, Kevin Comerford, like he loves to say run the play, right? I have t-shirts that say slow is smooth, smooth is fast, whatever slogan that came out that day, like that was what our mantra was. And the smaller businesses, go back and listen to exactly what he said and then just write it down, because that's the entire process, right? And we create books around this. We train like constantly. As if you're in those larger companies, day in and day out, that is how we live our culture, is through the training, the role playing, the meetings, the constant conversation, right, that we bring to the table to deliver the best customer experience that's most consistent.
Yeah, it's no different than a professional sports team.
Right.
Baseball teams go to spring training. Football teams have PTAs before they start the season. They go to practice every day. You don't get to play the game as much as you get to practice.
Right.
So just think about that. Like the game is won when there's no fans in the stadium. The game is won in the office on Mondays when you have a service meeting and you do some training. That's when you win. You don't win when you're out there at the customer's house. We have to huddle and then we go play the game. But man, you win by practice. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. Like the best Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, some of those really like crazy great athletes, they practiced harder than they played. They practiced really, really hard so that when they got in a game, it was just muscle memory.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have to think about what they were going to do next. That's all running a service call is. That's all running a sales call is, doing the same thing over and over and over. So when you ask the customer a really good question and they go, "Woo, that's a really good question. Let me think about that. Nobody's asked me that before." You can stop and ask them another question. And then you can ask them a third question, and then they'll tell you exactly what they want.
Yeah.
And so that's super fun for me. I love the psychology behind the way people purchase.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter if it's a window or roofing or a water heater or an air conditioner or a garage door. It doesn't really matter what the product is. It's all the psychology behind the way people purchase.
Mm-hmm.
I love the way the brain works. And so
I love it too. And I got into marketing because they said, "Hey, Sarah," I read the definition, right? First, I wanted to be a kindergarten teacher. And the definition, but my dad was like, no, there's no money in that. And I was like, okay, there is money in that. So don't deter yourself from that. But he's like, "You're going to be in marketing." And I was like, okay, well, he knows something that I don't know. And so I read the definition, and it was to change the way the consumer behaves, right? So it's like for good or for worse, because marketers have the ability to do both. And I was like, cool. So my job is to change someone's actual neural like pathways of how they behave and how they think, right? And so I took it to like, "Oh, Sarah, you're a wizard. Like you can do magical things, right?" The truth is, like, you can do great things and you can do bad things with marketing and advertising, and like, but it's the same thing that goes into the sales process. It's a mindset. It's like, how do you want to go and change the world and help people with this, mindset of like, do the good things, right?
yeah, I don't think what you do and what I do is that far apart, really.
It's not.
What they say about training, I see a lot of people stand up in front of a room and talk to their people or talk at their people. And they're kind of like just a talking head. And they think that's training, and that's not training. Telling is not selling. Talking is not training. Training is actually changing the performance of a team. Like you change their performance, and the only way to change their performance is to change their behavior. So you're trying to change somebody's behavior, their perception of in marketing. I'm trying to change their behavior to do better, perform better.
Yeah, to have a transformative experience, right?
Yeah.
Like,
and man, when it works, it's just an unbelievably beautiful thing, and people do extraordinary things. 2023. I talked to a $4 million guy in Texas. I said, hey, when you did $4 million, what'd that do for you and your kids and your wife and your family? What'd that do? And he said, best answer of 2023 said, "Oh, we got a new zip code." And I'm like, man, that's awesome. He moved his family to a better zip code. And that's what like a high performance can do for people. It can change people's lives. And so I just love that. Love it.
Yeah. And I think a lot of salespeople are very high. They have to be high performers, right? Otherwise they won't perform. And so like how, as a high performing salesperson, like what's that mindset look like? And how do you get into the game?
Yeah, it's really a growth mindset. Carol Dweck studied mindset for 40 years. She did a 40-year study of mindset, and she said, and you've heard this, there's a fixed mindset and there's a growth mindset. And growth-minded people think a certain way, they act a certain way, they think a certain way, they talk a certain way. People with a fixed mindset say, "Well, I can't get any better. It is what it is. If I had a better manager, if I worked better for a better company, if I had a better customer, or if we had better financing." And really, that's just a fixed mindset. You gotta take that and put it into the growth mindset, and that's all just like a checkup, man. You gotta clean your filter a little bit, because we all have these filters based on what's happened to us in our past, and our parents and our education and how we were raised and how it we all have these filters. Well, I would never, ever, ever use 1 year same as cash. And like, why? Because my parents never liked to finance anything, right? You got to clean that filter and just know how you purchase things is not how everybody else purchase things.
Right. You can't make the decision for them before you even enter the house, right? That's not up to you. They're adults. Like they'll make their own decision and their own choices, but you have to provide the options in order to give them the ability to make the choice.
And they all make those decisions differently. And if you can understand that, like you can cater your presentation to around the type of personality you're involved with. If I came to your house and you're a marketer, or you said you're a salesperson, I'm probably going to change my presentation just slightly because you're going to react to it differently than if I came there and you said you're a banker or you're an accountant.
Right?
Like your brain works different. And so you have to understand who you are so you know who's sitting across the table from you. So a lot of that's personality test and all those kind of good things. And so but you have to understand who you are so you can understand who you're talking to. Yeah. And I love that because you only got about 55 minutes to figure all that out.
Right.
Somebody's house, Yeah. And they don't want a new one. They don't want a new one.
No, because that's expensive, right? If you came to my house and you're like, hey, you need this $30,000 unit, I'd be like, okay, I know this because I've done the research. Like I wouldn't have you out there without the research. And then I'd have like a big sigh. And then I'd be like, what's the finance plan look like? I already know the finance plan because it's like I'm a thinker, like ahead of everything, but I would still have hesitation just to give you shit.
Well, not just that. You would have hesitation because you could probably right now think of 10 things you could spend 30 grand on.
Yeah, and I have so much fun with it instead of this thing. But that's costing me 30 grand in the long run, or actually in the short term, because I see my electric bills. I see, the dust clutter up in my house. I see all of the problems. I just choose to ignore it because I'd rather be in Greece.
Exactly. And honestly, you have to start talking like it's an investment in your home.
Right.
It's not so much a cost. It's not so much a purchase. It's an investment.
Yeah.
We got a new roof a couple of years ago. I look at that as an investment because when I go to sell this house, I'm going to say, hey, I got a new roof in 2022.
Yeah. And that's an important investment. And I think like COVID did shift our mindset. We stayed home for a long time and then we got to go out, and it did change the way people think about how they're spending their money and doing different things. But in the long term, a lot of people did buy homes or move to a different space, and they need to invest in it. And it's just going to continuously be an investment because the weather is changing. The environment is changing. And so we have to keep up with those inside of our homes and inside of our businesses. And so I think, like my thought process is I just like to mess with people that come to my house because, I think it's funny. But
I listen to people solicit in my neighborhood. And so they'll come by, pest control, roofing, windows people, and I'll listen to every one of them's presentation because I just love salespeople and just to see how they're going to talk about it, Yeah.
Now, I did have one slide his business card through my door, which makes me feel gross. Like, don't get that close to my house if I'm not home, because then inside, all of a sudden I have a business card that it's gross. Don't do that. I would say that you can put it on my door handle, but don't put it on inside my house. Gross.
Hey, recently I had somebody knock on my door, and I didn't open up my glass door. I'm just like, oh, hey, how are you? And she said something about we need a plumber, and we thought you might know somebody that you can recommend. And I'm like, I looked at her kind of strange, and I was like, do I know you? And she was like, we just moved in a couple of doors down. We met you one time. I said, I thought you were trying to sell me something. Because, hey, your home is your castle.
Yeah.
And you don't want to let some people in. And man, I've onboarded a bunch of people into this industry. And I would typically during an interview say, Sarah, hey, let's take a little break and walk around the building. Mm-hmm. And I walk you around the building and introduce you to the call center manager. And I might introduce you to the sales manager. And I might introduce you to someone in accounting. And then I bring you back to the interview room and sit you down in there. And I'd say, hey, I'll be back in 2 minutes. I would run around to all those people. I'd run to the sales, the call center manager. I'm like, what do you think? Yes or no? And then I'd go to the accounting department. I'm like, what do you think? Yes or no? And I'd go to the salesman. If one of those people said, something's not right about that person, it's something didn't jive there, I wouldn't hire those people. They could get a thumbs down and not get hired because they didn't have a good interaction with somebody they just met. And we do that. We need them to have a good interaction with somebody they just met. They do that 3, 4, 5 times a day, every single day. If you're in the residential home services industry, you're going to meet new people, and you can't make it weird. You can't be like, something's weird about that person. Right? And so it's hard to grow a business when you need people. And sometimes we just hire a warm body because we just need somebody that bad, and that's never good for your business.
Yeah.
It's just never good because they're going to tell their family and their friends they sent a guy out here or they sent a girl out here, and something wasn't right about that person. I don't know what it was.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, if I look at my neighborhood and I still pat myself on the back for what I did, at least once a week, I see the company that I used to work for and their vans everywhere in my neighborhood. So I did my job very well. But I also sent the company that I worked for to my parents' home. And I made sure that my parents told me the level of experience. And they still tell me to this day, even though I don't work for the company, of hey, they didn't call me for my service. I had to call them, or they'll be like, hey, they came out here, and they still take pictures with them.
Oh, they did.
And post them on Facebook. Yeah, and send them to me. And I'm like, am I supposed to send this to the company?
That's awesome.
But that's the experience that I'm looking for, right? Yeah. It's my job to put our people out there with people that I am the closest to, because I want to trust them myself so that I can send them out there and know that they're trustworthy to give the same experience, right?
Absolutely. Like you were saying, our friend Eddie McFarland says, hey, would I hire this person? Would I train this person? Would I send that person to my mom's house? Yeah. That's kind of how he thinks. I always think, would I like to go out to dinner with this person? Could I hang out with this person for a couple hours and have a drink or have some appetizers? Or would it just be super weird? Because if you wouldn't want to do that, you probably wouldn't want that person in your home. Mm-hmm. Right. And now I've had some people that were kind of on the border, and they did pretty good with homeowners because they only spent an hour with them. Mm-hmm. If they'd have spent 3 hours with them, they would have figured out that dude's weird or something off about him. Right?
We're all weird, but it's leave your weird at home.
Right? There's no such thing as normal, right?
Right.
And so sometimes you can hire somebody as a technician or a salesperson that you could probably have dinner with. You could probably have a couple cocktails or an appetizer with them, but you wouldn't want to take them on vacation with you.
Oh, yeah.
Right? The superstars, the real superstars in this industry, you could probably go on vacation with them. Mm-hmm. They're that easy to get along with. They're that they're not controlling, and they're just really good human beings, right? Mm-hmm. And you could probably go on vacation with them, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I love that. Well, let's talk about the product that we created, and then we'll just wrap this thing up. First, people have no idea. So, and you didn't have any idea of what we were actually creating until probably yesterday when I was like, maybe this is what we should launch it. So Jerry and I got to create this product with Eddie McFarland and Keith Mercurio, and it's called The Pro You Know. And I think it's like probably one of the best gifts that I've ever gotten to create. And I still get to create because it's going to grow big. But it's giving back to the industry with like industry experts for coaching. And it's not just coaching on sales coaching. Like we talked about mindset, we talked about life, we talked about we talked about everything that we could think about, leadership, mental health in a lot of ways. And so, Jerry, I just want to know what this project means to you and why you decided to be a part of it.
Well, I think Sales Pro is terrific. The fact that you can do a virtual ride along and record a technician in a house or record a salesperson in the house. And then through AI, you can go back and break down, he said, basically 8 times, or they never asked for the order, or they didn't include the spouse, and just all kind of feedback. And that part in itself is worth it. The part that I love about it is I can take that information and train to it. I can take that information and teach contractors and teach service managers and teach sales managers and owners. How do you take that information and unpack it? How do you unwrap it and put it into a training program where you can actually celebrate what they did right? Celebrate. Here's one we probably could have done a little better. Celebrate. Here's one we probably should learn from. We either win or we learn, right? And so we celebrate what they did right. People, if you tell them all the things they're doing right, they'll do more of that. You want to celebrate what you want more of.
Yeah.
We don't want to be in the business of telling people they're doing wrong. And I personally feel like Sales Pro and the Pro is the way to do it. I think that instead of teaching them all the, like beating them up, like, I had a contractor hire my company, and I was preliminary meeting with them one day, and I said, well, how often do you meet with your people? Like, how often do you have meetings? And they said, oh, we don't have meetings, we have beatings. We bring them in and tell them what they're doing wrong. And I'm like, well, we got to change that, man. We got to change that, because a lot of times, like, they're having those issues at home. They're having a tough home life, and times are tough. I mean, we're living in a weird time, right? And when they come to work, it should be like a safe haven. It should be a place they look forward to coming to work, and they get told that they're doing good, and we believe in you, and we're going to grow you, and we can help you. And I tell people every single day, if you ever leave this company, if you ever leave the company you're working for, and you want to start your own air conditioning business, you want to start your own plumbing business, just call me and I'll help you. I'll help you do it. Like, I literally will help you do it. Here's the only 2 things I want you to say about the company you're working with today. If you ever leave this company, I want you to say they had the best training. They absolutely had the best training, and you had to perform. Like, you have to perform. Like, that's the catch. And if I can help with that training part, the performance takes care of itself. Right. And so I love that. And so if you ever want to open your own restaurant, call me and let me know. And whatever money you're going to put into that restaurant, you can give me that money. And when that feeling goes away, I'll give you all your money back.
I was going to say, nobody should open a restaurant unless, like, you're like you have a lot of money to blow.
Yeah, that's right. Don't go to Vegas if you can't afford to lose the money. Don't open a restaurant if you can't afford to lose the money. But man, our industry is literally, there's some generational wealth happening in our industry, and that's a crazy fun thing to see.
Yeah.
Right? And I mean, just making millionaires out of plumbers.
Oh, millionaires.
Yeah.
There's no one that I don't know. Like, everyone I am around are multimillionaires. Like, all of them. Oh. And it's so good to know them. It's so good to be a part of it. It's so good to be one. And I think, like, it's just, the industry is just cool. And anything that we can do to continuously, like, support help people. Like that's all it's about. And the content that we provided, I think it's just going to grow people to an immense level, and we're just going to continue to elevate the trades. And yeah, I just really wanted to say I appreciate the words of wisdom and the stories that you shared. I really believe in you, and I believe that we are going to change an industry together. So thank you for doing that with me.
You're welcome. I am a big fan of yours. You know, I'm a big fan of yours. I think you're the best marketer in the business. And I think if people don't know that, they're going to know that. Service Titan has already recognized it. And so good for you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me. I'll come back anytime.
Okay, well, tell people how to get a hold of you.
Hey, you can reach me at Jerry Rollins at bgdggroup.com. That's bgdggroup.com. Or I'll just give you my telephone number, 704-619-9444.
All right. Awesome. Well, Jerry, thank you so much for being on the Trademark. We really appreciate you. And for those listening, thank you so much for listening to this episode. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Be good so you can do good. See you later.